Hey, I think I had myself on mute, so I'm just going to take myself off mute just for a second because we have these lovely ladies here who are ready to give us some wonderful information tonight about childhood depression. But as people are coming on, we just want to give people a second to maybe come on Facebook so they can be a part of this conversation, because we're getting more and more of an audience on Facebook, Dr. Moore and Ms. Holmes. So we're just going to let people come on. And just for as people are coming on, I just want to introduce you all to what we're doing. So those that have been kind of with us since 2020, this is the Arkansas Association of Black Psychology Professionals. And about May of 2020, we started this Mindful Minute conversation series. We've been having these conversations about how to navigate and how to cope with the dual pandemics of racism and COVID-19, because we are still in this pandemic, both pandemics. So with this conversation series, we focus on promoting the emotional wellness of the Black community through engaging and educational content. We try to provide practical tips, tools, and techniques for navigating the stress of COVID-19, racism, relationships, parenting, being a teacher in the school system. We've covered a lot of different topics, and we want to cover topics that are relevant to the Black community. So tonight we are talking about the blues, childhood depression. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Dr. Moore and Ms. Holmes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holmes. And hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Karen Moore, and I'm so happy to be here with our guest of honor, Ms. Gail Holmes. And I'm going to get right into it. I want to tell you a little bit about our guest. You all are in for a treat. Ms. Gail Holmes, Mrs. Gail Holmes, rather. She's a St. Louis, Missouri native from the Show Me State. And she joins us and will discuss her first children's book. It's My Little Boy Blue. And I bought it myself, and my daughter and I had a chance to read it together last night. So I'll share a little bit about our interaction too later on. Mrs. Holmes is an author. She's a public speaker. She's a community activist and champion for pediatric mental health, my kind of people. Mrs. Holmes knows all about children and caring for others as a wife, a mother of two, and Gigi, that when I become a grandmother, that's my name too, Gigi, to 4 adorable little ladies. Mrs. Holmes recognizes that every child feels blue sometimes, and that is so true. This can cause quite a bit of stress and worry, and even feel scary for children and their families. It is her hope, Mrs. Holmes's hope, that her book sparks much discussion, just like it did for my daughter and I last night, and becomes a valuable tool used to further educate and eradicate the stigmatization associated with mental health, as we all know, and related diagnoses. So let's talk about why this particular topic for your first book, this is your very first book, is My Little Boy Blue. Why this topic? Why is this so meaningful for you?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. This is such an honor to be able to share my story and talk about this subject with you. I really am in awe of your profession and everyone who has a vested interest in the mental health of our babies. I just thank you so much for the work you do. But, like most new things, this book came about out of a personal need. When my children were younger, they loved books, and I was that mama that loved to read to them. So we navigated a lot of life's experiences through children's stories, everything from mama's having a baby to first day of school to, ear infections, even hard stuff like death. But when my family got the diagnosis that one of my children had depression, those tools were not available to me. The things that I had relied on for so many years, children's books, there was nothing out there. So basically, I wrote the book that I wish I'd had for my children when they were younger. And that's how it came about.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. When you see a need, fill it. That is pretty awesome. So depression, let's break it down just a little bit. Let's talk about some of the symptoms in children. And then we want to make sure, because some people may, and I work with parents all the time about how to recognize what depression looks like in children versus adults. So what some parents have a tendency to do is think, okay, it's all about sadness. Why should a child be sad? They don't have to go to work every day. They don't have to worry about paying bills. I provide all their clothes and food for them, but they
Yeah.
don't quite understand. They don't quite understand. Why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Well, you know what, first of all, I want to tell you why this is so important. I know I'm preaching to the choir now, but just to bore you with some statistics, 1 in 4 Americans have a diagnosed mental disorder. We have 20% of our teens right now struggling with anxiety. We are finding that researchers are studying children, and children as young as preschool aged are exhibiting signs of depression. So this, like you said earlier, we are in the middle of a pandemic, but we also have an epidemic of major proportions. We've got mental health issues that are devastating our kids. So this is so important to start this conversation early and to do it often, because, you know, the signs of depression are low self-esteem, poor grades, poor relationships, eating disorders, sexual promiscuity, teen pregnancy, self-harming, on and on and on. And every parent's worst nightmare, suicide. So when you think about what's different between seeing symptoms in children versus adults, I really don't think they're too different. I mean, the difference is that children don't have the responsibilities of adults. So it goes, you know, misdiagnosed for a while because, like you said, we're like, that can't even be an option. You're sad. Your job is to play. What do you have to be sad about? But the symptoms are the same. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm a mom, so I'm speaking from experience. Some of the things that we looked back on and saw were, you know, telltale signs were we had a baby that didn't smile. We did everything to get pictures with smiling faces and, you know, made all the sounds, used all the, you know, stuffed animals. It was very rare that my baby smiled. If you have a baby that doesn't smile, you may have a candidate for depression. Another thing, if you have a child who is in school, the school bell rings, it's recess, the kids are squealing, running outside to play. Your child stoically stands up, goes outside, maybe stands against the wall, maybe sits on a bench alone and reads. They may be a candidate for depression. Another thing, I remember, you know, if you are saying to your child, it's a beautiful day outside, or the kids are outside playing, you're in a dark room watching TV or reading a book, go outside and play. If you hear yourself saying that to a child over and over again, they may be a candidate for depression. So there are, you know, signs that we can, you know, once you're made aware that that's an option, there are signs that you can look for. But most parents, it's like you said, that would be the furthest thing from your mind. We were totally blown away. We were just like, depression can't even be an option. You know, again, your job is to play. What you got to be sad about? So I
And so,
think really that the symptoms are the same. It's just ignorance, lack of knowledge, and knowing what we're looking at. We call it, you know, oh, my kid's a loner, or they rather read than be with people, or they're lazy. They don't like to go outside and play. But these are, you know, could be signs of depression.
and I like the way you said they could be signs of depression. So it's not necessarily that they will 100% meet the full criteria for depression, but these are just some signs that may warrant further exploration. And just
Absolutely.
let me add to that just a little bit. In childhood depression, we're assuming that some of these kids may not have the words or can articulate exactly how they're feeling. So it may present in physical symptoms, like they may complain of frequent headaches or stomach aches. It could be moods. So I don't know about you. I've seen irritable moods, like, hold on, don't take it personal, but explore just a little bit before you think that they have an attitude that's directly towards you. Sleep disturbance. And as you said, eating habits. So is the kiddo overeating or not eating enough, not like they used to? Having low energy where they feel like they're just drained all the time. If your kiddo is the one that would love to get up and go fishing with you on Saturday mornings, and all of a sudden they're no longer interested, so they lose interest in the things that they once found interesting. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of these symptoms kind of overlap other disorders. So that's why we're saying maybe. So keep that in mind. But still, I think all of that would warrant further exploration. And last, what we call suicidal ideation. So we never, ever want that to happen, but it is real. So let's talk about it and not avoid talking about this hard topic. But we're looking for these thoughts of wanting to seriously harm themselves. Now that's different from self-injurious behaviors. So non-suicidal, there's two different types, but we're talking about the ones where they seriously want to harm themselves. And we definitely want to be aware and seek help immediately if that ever occurs.
Right. And I mean, and that this is the point. We want to seek help, whether they are showing mild symptoms of depression or whether they have escalated to suicide ideations. We want to seek help. The moment you suspect that there's a change, that there's something different, that there's something wrong, that's the moment you have this conversation. And that is why I think tools like Is My Little Boy Blue are so important, because there's so many families out there that this is not on their radar. They don't, not only does the child not have the vocabulary to speak about their illness, but the parent doesn't, because they don't even think that that is an option. You know, it's got to be a stomach ache. It's got to be, you know, you have to have the flu, or you have to have, you know, it's got to be a physical reason why you feel this way. They don't even think that a mental issue could be an option. So that's why conversations like this and books like this are very important, because mental illness is just as prevalent as physical illness.
That you're exactly right. I'll never forget when someone said, when you have a cold or an infection, you go see a doctor, right? And they prescribe an antibiotic if that's what's needed to treat it or whatever. Wouldn't you do the same thing, or shouldn't you do the same thing?
Shouldn't you? Absolutely. And, you know, and as far as educators are concerned, how sad is it that teachers feel that their hands are tied? Like if you had a child who was struggling to see the board, you wouldn't hesitate to call a parent and say, you know, I think you need to take them to the optometrist. They can't see.
Right.
But if you see any type of behavior problems that would warrant a therapist or therapies, you know, there's hesitancy around that. I don't want to tell somebody that their kid may need to go to a therapist. It's like, you shouldn't feel any difference. The stigma should not be there.
You are exactly right. And that's why this talk is so important. I want to show everyone your book. I promise not to spoil it, so y'all need to get it, just like I did.
Go get it.
But
Go get it.
look at these, look at the illustrations. So pretty. So pretty. They're so vivid in color. So I think they're fantastic. Was it your intent to have the character that in characters, because it talks about mom, dad, and the little boy, was it your intent to have them relatable for the children in the Black community? And why is this important to you?
You know what? Absolutely. First of all, it's my story and we're a Black family. So you know, that's what it was going to be about. But I thought it was so important to share my story because there is a stigma in our community. And I wanted people who look like us to see people who look like us be proactive about mental health care.
No, that's right.
Unashamedly telling their story, saying that, we sought therapy and therapeutics to get our child well, that there is valor in taking care of your kids, no matter what's wrong with them. And, let's face it, representation matters. So yes, I wanted little brown babies to read this book and see themselves and see their mom and their dad and a doctor that looked like them. But this is a universal story. This is not a story just for brown families. This is not a story just for sad boys. This is a universal story. I want this to be in every school and doctor's office and library and household in the world, because I want this conversation to happen early and often. And I want to save our babies. I want to give them the vocabulary to express their feelings.
And along those lines, like I said, my daughter and I had her read it to me. And you could tell when she got to the end, she was just thinking, because she too was trying to figure out, how does this apply to me? And even though it may not be depression, it's more worry. That opened up the door for us to have a conversation about what that looks like and what are we doing about it, and do you want to go to therapy, and that could be a good thing. And so we talked a lot about that, and I hope this begins to spread like wildfire, and people are having more conversations about that.
You know what? I think, this is an important book for story time, for teachers to, a bedtime story for parents. It should be normal, we should be, I feel that just like physical exams, every person who goes to school starts a new job, goes on whatever venture that they have to go on where it requires a physical exam, you should have to have a mental health evaluation as well. I'm just like, how many school shootings could we avoid if every child had to have a physical exam as well as a mental health checkup before they started school?
I love that idea. And a
It's
lot of schools in Missouri, like I went to grad school there, they're doing mental health screenings. So universal, that at one point in time, that was a huge topic of universal mental health screenings. But I think coming along with that, okay, what if they're diagnosed? It's not about diagnosing, because if a child needs help, just like what you said, we don't want to wait till it's too bad.
right. And why is there a stigma against a diagnosis? It doesn't mean it's going to be your diagnosis for your whole life. You had the flu on Wednesday. You're not going to have the flu for 5 years. So,
Let's hope not. Right, that's right.
But I do want to give a shout out to this illustrator. He is a young African-American college student when he illustrated that book. And you can reach him, well, I got to read this, the Brad Pad _ on Instagram. So, I mean, he does amazing things. He's since graduated. Now he's a big time art worker, working on national campaigns and things. But I was so happy to have this young man on board. He just had a heart for this project, and he knocked it out of the park. He did such a beautiful job with these illustrations. I was just blessed to have him on board.
So this might be a good segue as we're talking about how it's received. Dr. Holmes, I hope it's okay for me to read this that came in the chat. Oftentimes, men and fathers are reluctant to seek mental health care. Did you have any resistance from your husband? Any pushback?
I didn't, I think we were so devastated we were so broken that he was like, whatever we got to do, whatever we got to do. Now, the difference between the two of us was, I was like, we got to tell everybody. We got to tell everybody this is what you need to look for. We got to tell everybody to pray for us. We got to find resources, any place we can. And he was like wanting to protect our child's privacy a little bit more, like, why you got to tell everybody, why you got, oh, there you go. So that was the difference between us. But he was like, no, whatever it takes. If we got to sell a car to put him in, therapeutic school, if we got whatever, just tell me what to do and we're going to do it. But I was so vocal about, our journey and, seeking help in that he was kind of like, let's not tell everybody.
So how did he, okay, with that, if that's how he started off, how he feel about the book now?
Well, he's fine with the book, and now my son is an adult, and I'm a grandmother, so
Right.
My son's daughter was like, Gigi, how did my dad feel about that at the beginning, but look, girl, I feel like this was a mission, and, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I was like, baby, this is kind of bigger than you, and he's, he's good with it. He's a very private person. So you're never going to see him, doing anything like this, but
okay.
Yeah. But it all worked out.
Let him know we said thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because this planted the seed for many, many, many conversations and hopefully barriers being torn down. So tell him thank you.
I will.
Now, do you observe that denial plays a role in the stigmatization of mental health issues? What about, also talk a little bit about what you think culture and religion.
Well, you know what? I don't like to say denial, because when you're talking about children and depression or mental health issues, I just think it's ignorance. I think it's just not on your radar. So it's not so much that you're denying it, but you don't even think that could be an option. Like you said before, your job is to play. So like depression, what does that mean? But once you're educated to what that means, that it could be a biological issue, as a situational issue, a whole lot of things can bring forth mental illness. So once you educate yourself on that, you realize, okay, you can get sick at any age. Right. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a child can be depressed. But it's just human nature to want to see the positive and not want to deal with something hard. And so I guess there is a bit of denial, but I think it's more so just ignorance. Like you just don't think that could be a possibility. And as far as like culture goes, I think that we as a people have had so many external struggles that when it comes to an internal struggle and fixing that, we consider that a luxury that we can't really afford. It's like
to address a luxury that we can't afford to address,
or you're right, can't afford to address, or just can't afford to have. Like you can't afford to be doing something to yourself when the world is beating you up, when the world's trying to kill you, when you got systemic racism then held you down for all this time, and now you gonna hold yourself down? Are you crazy? You can't be crazy like that. I think that culturally has been like a mindset of ours. Like, no, that's for people who have such an easy life. They don't have nothing else to be worried about but some foolishness, you know, but
Right.
that too comes with, you know, ignorance. When you don't realize what depression is, what anxiety is, where all that can stem from, when you don't realize that it could be a biological misfiring of neurons, that it can be a hormonal, you know, when you don't realize all the things that could be ailing you to make you have this illness, then, you know, culturally, you know, it was easy for us to say, we don't have money for no therapy now. Come on, you can't be doing stuff like that. But, you know, I think that so much of that has changed.
And I'm so grateful for that. So
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
And growing up, we really didn't talk about mental health the way that we talk about it now. And
No,
then-
because you were just an alcoholic or a drug addict, or, you know, you were talking to yourself, or, you know,
or
but
crazy. It was all
or
lumped
crazy.
under crazy.
Yeah,
or
or
clutched to the
crazy.
head.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so religious folks, you know, growing up back in the day used to say, just pray. That's
Just
never
pray.
give
Pray it
it.
away.
But
And if you
I'm here
still
to
had
tell
it, then you didn't pray hard enough.
you are exactly right. But I'm so here to tell you, you can do both.
You
You
can do
can have,
both. You can do
have,
both.
you can believe in God. You can have whatever beliefs, religious beliefs, or spiritual beliefs that you have, and values, and hold them very, very close to you, near and dear, as I do mine. But I also, when I need to, I see a therapist.
And you know what? You got on glasses because your eyes aren't perfect. I
Right.
mean, like, that's crazy. So somebody's gonna say, well, if you believed in God, you would have perfect vision. No, I don't have perfect vision, and God created optometrists. So now with these glasses, I got perfect vision. It's just like, it's so, it makes no sense when you have people, and I call it religious people, as opposed to people who have a relationship with God or a relationship with their higher power. Because when you truly have a relationship with God, you know He wants the best for you. And as simple as that, you know He wants good for you. So even in the midst of us living in a fallen world, and stuff happens, and there's sickness and death and illness, even in that, God can bring good from it. And through the experiences that my family had, we as a family have drawn closer to God. This book has brought exposure to mental health issues with children. And you know, and I'm just grateful that I have a legion of folks praying for me that wouldn't have been doing that if this hadn't happened, because I would be thinking I didn't need it. But now I'm like, y'all pray for my family, because, you know, we got issues and we need help. So there is good that comes from every struggle. And I really have to share this with you guys. Speaking of the, you know, the spiritual piece, because I am a Christian, I was just so devastated by my son's illness. And I remember being mad and sad and crying out and just saying, Lord, he is a baby, you know, he is a young man, and he is so sad that he doesn't want to live. And I just don't think this is fair. And God so clearly spoke to me and said, extraordinary people cannot have ordinary lives. And that has changed my whole perspective with any struggle, just with any struggle. And we all have them. We all have them. And those struggles are what make us extraordinary.
Yes, I love that. Extraordinary people cannot have ordinary lives.
Nope.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I like that. I'd have to write that down and remember when things happen to me, or I can, I'll promise I won't plagiarize. I'll cite you. We got another question.
Not my words. God, you can look.
Right. Okay, come on here. Yeah, okay. What has been the response of Black communities to your book on the speaker circuit?
You know what? Very positive. Very positive. Well, you know, people who invite me to speak want to hear what I have to say. So I guess, you know, it's
Right.
kinda like, you know what I'm going to talk about. No surprises. So, you know, but the one pushback that I did have, I have actually two versions of the book.
Mm.
One that talks about medication, and one that talks about, you know, the page is like, after Michael talked about his feelings and felt better, blah, blah, blah. Well, my other version says, after Michael uh, talked about his feelings, took his medication, you know, the skies weren't gray, he felt better, you know, whatever that part is. Now I'm forgetting what my book says. But so the St. Louis Public Schools, I had to take the part about medication out. Yeah. So
Wow.
even though there are, I think they said there were 78% of St. Louis City school children were on some type of medication, super high, almost 80%, but they could not have a book that talked about medication because it was like it was endorsing medication.
Well,
So
you have a
that's been my only.
disclaimer. You have a disclaimer right on the front page.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so yes.
Yeah, so that's been my only that's been the only pushback that I had. And I, you know, did a second edition. So now all the doctor's offices get the one that talks about medication, and the schools get the one that just talking about your feelings.
So the one I have talks about medication, and it says after taking his medicine, there were more bright colors in Michael's world. And then on the next page, his medicine was not a magic pill. This is true though. The research says that, you know, the most effective for some, depending on the severity and what we're talking about, what diagnosis, but therapy and medication tends to be more effective.
Right.
But because he was courageous and talked about his feelings, so it said both. But
Yes, but it couldn't say medication. I had to
oh
take that
wow,
part out.
okay. Well, I like this version because even if
Because
it
you're a
doesn't,
doctor.
it just
Yeah,
shows all the yeah, I know.
that's
But
why.
it just shows the options. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean that it will always apply to every single kiddo, but it just shows the options.
right.
So now that I have this one, should we be expecting more? What other projects do you have on the horizon, Mrs. Holmes?
You know what? This is my passion, my mission. I am dedicated to getting this everywhere that I can. I'm going to doctor's offices. I'm doing story times in schools. I want this book everywhere. I want this conversation to start early. I want it to be often. So this is my project. This is my one and done for now.
Okay,
So,
what is up for now? Okay.
yep. But I do, you know, just on my little side hustle is trying to make mental health exams a part of our well-being, a part of our yearly exam protocols,
For the like physicals, or
the
even if we're
physicals. Mhm.
universal screenings in schools, we check to see if there's any characteristics or things for dyslexia.
Yeah,
Maybe something like a universal screening to make sure that mental health services are available in case the kiddos may need it.
yeah.
I like that idea. Um, and then where can we purchase Is My Little Boy Blue?
It's on Amazon.
It okay. And
Yeah,
then
it's on Amazon. You know, it lists that it's at Target, so target.com, you can get it. And anyone who is a healthcare professional or a parent who is financially struggling, if you reach out to me at ismylittleboyblue.com, I will get you a book.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank
Mhm.
you. And could we put that in the chat, Dr. Holmes? Her website is mylittleboyblue.com, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Let
Okay.
me
Will
use
do.
that.
I'll
And
put it on in the chat and on Facebook.
perfect. And
Yeah.
then also just a little plug to our local bookstore. And I heard that it's a whole experience, and I'm going pretty soon. Pyramid Art Books and
Oh,
Publishing.
yes. You're
And
right. Pyramid art. Absolutely.
I heard they have your books, so you can we put that in there too? Pyramid Art Books and Custom Framing. And I heard that, like I said, that's a whole experience, and I love experiences. I'll be going there to visit as well. We do have another question, and perhaps we can tag team on this one. What advice would you have for parents who have just received a diagnosis of depression or even anxiety for their child?
Seek help immediately. Talk to your child immediately. Listen to your child. The main thing, I think, is that children feel safe, that they feel safe sharing their feelings, that they feel safe knowing that they're not alone, that what they're experiencing is not their fault, and that there's help for them. And at the end of the day, they are loved and everything's going to be okay.
I would agree. And I think I like the idea of talk and listen. Sometimes as parents, we find ourselves talking to or talking at our
Right.
children. But it's important to also listen. And even if it's not saying that we have to agree with everything they say either, but just
Let
validating
me
that's
get it
how they
out.
do it. Yeah. And
Mhm.
frequent check-ins. That's what has helped me with my little one. Frequent check-ins. And I don't say, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Because that's invalidating. And
Right.
though it may be irrational, coming the worries and fears, that's something that
She
they
feels it's real. It's her feeling.
real to her.
Right.
It's rational for her. And
Right.
that's what we have to keep in mind, that we're looking at it from our adult lens. But if we
Mhm.
can take the time to separate this adult mind and how we view the world, and maybe from the view of the child, we begin to see, oh yes,
Right.
that is
Right.
valid.
Yep. And I know, we had talked earlier about what do you do if you suspect, something is going on. This person actually has gotten a diagnosis, but even if you have a suspicion, I tell parents, we are uniquely knitted up with our kids. You don't have suspicions just willy-nilly. A kid, your child doesn't walk into the room and you touch their forehead and say, are you feeling okay, for no reason. You have seen or felt or heard something that made you think, you don't look the same. You look like you might be ill. You're not reading their diary for no reason. Something,
Yeah.
something has made your spidey senses go up. So even if you just suspect that something's off, I say have a conversation right away, get help right away, listen, and let them know that they are supported and loved, and they're not the only ones feeling like this, and there's help out there, and it's going to be okay.
That's
It's going to
right.
be okay.
And especially now, you may see an increase in that. And if you're feeling that way, we're talking about kiddos, but sometimes, like from my kiddo worries about me. And so that
Mm.
means that we should kind of take care, we should be mindful of making sure we're taking care of ourselves too, and modeling how to do that. Modeling
Absolutely.
how to do
And, and I tell parents, don't have CNN on 24/7. Kids don't need to be looking at every war in the country and everything that's going on. I mean, I'm just like, watch the news at night in your bedroom because kids are absorbing everything and they're so smart and they're so concerned if it's climate change or war or racism or, they are concerned. And
Right.
we have to be stewards of their mental health. We have to be caregivers and monitor what little ones can handle.
That's right.
Because I can't even handle it.
I can't
I
either.
don't need to know about all the world all the time.
That's right. No, you have a very valid point. And Dr. Holmes said boundaries, healthy boundaries. And I have this kind of view of if it's not necessary, we have these conversations about different topics, but we have a very limited capacity to kind of deal with these issues. And I get, like, at the beginning when you said we were so concerned about what's going on externally to us, we didn't have time or the luxury of dealing or feeling like, you know I can't stop, we got to keep going, keep going. So I try to keep in mind and help my daughter too. You have a very limited capacity to deal with certain things. These are the things that are most salient to you, most important for you. Try to focus on those while paying attention to, am I worrying too much? Is it affecting my grades? Things like, and I'm a psychologist, but um, so I know to ask those kind of questions. But I would like for the parents check in. Those frequent check-ins are so important. So when you do see those kind of dips in the grades when they normally are straight A students, or when they don't eat as much at dinner time, or they skip breakfast, or they don't go outside, then those are the clues for you to dig a little bit deeper.
Absolutely.
Um, and Mrs. Holmes, you mentioned self-esteem as being related to depression. What are
Mhm.
some ways to help children and teens build a healthy sense of self-esteem and self-worth? Excellent question.
Mhm. Wow. Okay, so again, I'm not a doctor, I'm a mom. So I have to preface that with, just, but I think a very important aspect of self-esteem is seeing images that look like you. As we said earlier, representation matters. If you have your children in an environment where they are the minority, um, always like sports, school, church, um, just always. I personally think that you have to work harder at ensuring that they have a positive self-esteem because little ones, they don't want to be different. They want to be like everybody else. It's when we get older when we celebrate our uniqueness. But while they are young, they want to look like everybody else. They want to sound like everybody else. They don't want to stand out. That there's exceptions to every rule. I have some grandchildren that are exceptions to that rule. They're like, everybody's wearing blue, I'm wearing purple.
Right, right.
But I think that's really important. So, sometimes you don't have a choice where your kids go to school or where they live, but you can always find a community of people that look like them that you can immerse yourself in from time to time. So it doesn't mean everybody's got to live in an all Black neighborhood or go to an all Black school or all Black church, but you should have some avenue where your child can just be Joe, where he's not Black Joe, he's not tall Joe, he's not skinny Joe, he's just Joe. And he's like, everybody else. So that for me was very important, that I made sure my kids were not always the minority, that they were in spaces where they were with people that were, where Black people were the majority, where they were. What was the other part? Self-esteem and
Self-esteem and self-worth.
Okay, and self-worth. Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand. I think we as parents um, have a job to instill in our child uh, that they are worthy, that we listen to them, that we value their opinions, that we celebrate them, um, and that we provide a safe environment for them. And by that, I mean, if your home is volatile, if you are volatile, if your circumstances are tenuous, then your child's feelings of safety could be damaged. So I think the best thing we can do is try to be well and happy and take care of ourselves. And we model that for our children. And not always put them first, put yourself first so that put that oxygen mask on so you can take care of them.
That's
That
right.
lets them know that mama's going to be okay, so I don't have to worry about her. um I don't know. I think sometimes we get into this thing where we want to tell our kids too much. Oh, mama had a rough day. I think I'm gonna have to do, but I just think you don't have to tell little ones everything. They're not your friend. You need a friend or a partner to share those things with. Not that you lie to your children, but that the grown-up worries of the world are not theirs yet.
Not,
I don't.
yeah, in due time, unfortunately. But yes, and I like the idea of creating a sense of safety, and also a sense, and this is how I do it in terms of self-worth. I let her know she belongs in places where people make may have a tendency to make her feel like she doesn't. So it happened
Mm,
this weekend where she noticed certain things, certain people looking or doing things in Costco. We got a Costco here just recently. And I said, you have every right to shop here, baby. Your money green, your card plastic, it got a chip in it just like everybody else.
Costco.
Well, her mama's, not hers. But but the point is, I wanted her to feel like she can go, and we're in the South too. So
Mhm,
um that's a whole nother story. But
mhm,
also certain classes where they have a tendency to have where they are in the minority, like the advanced classes, depending on the
mhm.
school, you have a right to be there too.
Absolutely.
You have a right to be there
Absolutely.
too. You have a right to raise your hand and express your ideas, and you have a right to express yourself how you want to. Those are some of the things that I wish, if when you know better, you do better. But maybe,
Right. Yeah.
parents would have said it's okay to be you. I got this
Mhm,
thing about, of all places, Cracker Barrel. I know. And it was this thing, it was like a little flamingo. It was all
mhm.
these pink flamingos. And it was one that was gold. And I have it in my office. It says, why try to fit in when you were born to stand
Just
out?
stand out.
Yes. So I tell my clients, my babies, look at that. I didn't know why I bought this from Cracker Barrel other than that pecan pie they got, but this was meant for you. Years later, I'm still telling people this was meant for you. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
how
Yep.
I try to boost my babies. And when I say babies, like my biological and then my clients,
Yeah.
self-esteem and self-worth. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that.
Mhm.
And thank you for what you shared too. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess I would have never thought about the racial identity issue, but Dr. Holmes said yes. Also, she agreed with you that promoting a healthy racial identity helps with self-esteem. She believes that as well. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments that we can share, or I can ask Mrs. Holmes?
gonna pop on real quick. No, there are not any more questions. People are saying they're enjoying the conversation. It's a great conversation. I guess the only other thought that I had, Dr. Moore or Ms. Holmes, if you want to add any more, is that if parents are maybe wondering any online resources, any books, is it anything like that that can be helpful as parents are wanting to learn more about depression and mental health in children and teens?
Well, the reason I wrote the book is because there was nothing else out there. So I don't know of any other resources. I know you can Google, and get a lot of information. And I'm sure there are pediatric psychiatrists that would be, have a wealth of information. But as far as children's books, that specifically tell the story of a family, looking at symptoms and getting a diagnosis and their journey through therapy and showing you the end result. Mine is the only book that I know of.
And to be quite honest, your book is the only one that I know of geared for, for the young kiddos too, that talks about the journey from start to finish too. But a website that I love, and I want to be mindful, don't Google WebMD. Google will have you thinking you got everything or your baby has everything. No, you want to go to reputable sites. Like I love the Mayo Clinic. I like the CDC. Mm-hmm. They have fact sheets. I print those off for my families or individuals that I see. So make sure you are going to websites with scientific kind of, like at the bottom, they have a list of articles that they cite, that they have research studies. You want to make sure that you are going to these reputable sites. And again, this is My Little Boy Blue by Mrs. Gail Holmes and the illustrator. And if you could give his information again, that'd be great. It's okay. Bradley Jenkins.
Yep, you can find him on Instagram. It is the Brad Pad _. That's how you find him on Instagram.
Okay. And Is My Little Boy Blue ? You can get this Amazon. I actually got mine from Amazon. But if you want to support local, and I wish I would have, I'll get one. I'm coming to see you, Pyramid. I'll get one for my clinic. So this is one for the house. I'll get one for my clinic. So I'll come to see you and support you. And then Pyramid has it here locally. And if you not trying to go anywhere, you can go to Amazon, I guess. Pyramid might be able to mail it to you too. I think that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
This jewel of a book with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mrs. Holmes and Dr. Moore, for that wonderful conversation. I like how you said too, Ms. Holmes, let me just kind of adjust this 1 second. I'm just going to adjust this so we can all see each other. All right. So, but thank you for that wonderful conversation. I was glad how you talked about really from start to finish. Like you all talked about quite a bit, from even recognizing the signs and symptoms to the importance of then seeking mental health treatment and what that's like for a parent and a child and going through that process, all of what's involved in that. So it sounds like your book illustrates and you talk about the importance of sticking with that all the way, seeing that all the way to the finish. So thank you so much for kind of sharing that and definitely showing illustrations so people in the Black community see this is for us too. We can seek mental health treatment.
That's right.
So this is good. A lot of good information about signs and symptoms of childhood depression, ways to be supportive as a parent, ways to be supportive just as adults in a child's life, and then a book. I like how Dr. Moore, you talked about how then you can read that book. So not only can a child read it, but a parent can read the book with the child. It sounds like that is a great way of doing that, so it can be a family conversation. I love that. So it's available at Pyramid, available at Amazon. I put some links in the chat. So the people that are on, you can scroll back through the chat and there's some links to Pyramid and the Amazon link is on there as well. And for those that are listening on Facebook, of course, you can go and check it out. Either Pyramid or Hearn Fine Art is what it's called as well. So you can Google Hearn Fine Art, and then probably you can Google Pyramid Art Gallery and pull it up as well that way. All right. So thank you all for joining us in this Mindful Minute conversation series. And please join us as we go into 2022. Of course, we all want to enjoy our holiday season, but please continue to tune in as we go into 2022, where we're going to focus on the theme of holistic healing. So for in January, February, and March, we're going to try to have this conversation about holistic healing. So in January is going to be on January the 10th. So please make note of that, because I know usually we come on the first Monday of the month. So since the first Monday in the month of January is still going to be the holiday season, we're going to come on January 10th. So please stay tuned for that. On January 10th, we're going to be focusing on restoring the body and mind through meditation, yoga, and music. In February, we're going to talk about adverse childhood experiences and trauma. And then in March, we're going to focus on prevention and ways of preventing suicide, and just kind of intervening and talking about some important issues that are pertinent to the Black community in that regard. But again, in January, we'll be focusing on how to restore the body and heal and recover through meditation, yoga, and music. So please join us for that. And thank you again, Dr. Moore and Mrs. Holmes, for your time and sharing your expertise and all of your information here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.